You have been performing your entire life, and the one person who saw through it just stopped watching. That is not a metaphor. That is the most dangerous moment in any relationship, and most people never see it coming. There is a silent shift that happens inside another person when they finally stop needing your approval. And if you have ever felt someone slowly become unreachable, even though they are standing right in front of you, then what I am about to describe will feel uncomfortably familiar. Carl Jung once suggested that the greatest tragedy of the human psyche is not that we fail to love, but that we fail to recognize love while it is still alive. Most people think relationships end with arguments, with betrayal, with some dramatic moment that splits everything apart. But the truth is far more unsettling. The most devastating endings are the quiet ones. They do not announce themselves. They do not slam the door. They simply withdraw, like a tide pulling back from the shore so gently you do not notice the water is gone until your feet are standing on dry sand. Let me tell you what this looks like from the inside, because if you are honest with yourself, you have either lived this or you are living it right now. There was someone in your life who gave you everything: their attention, their energy, their emotional presence. They sent you messages you barely read. They asked about your day, and you answered with one word or not at all. They dressed up hoping you would notice, and you looked at your phone instead. You did not do this because you were cruel. You did it because something deep inside your psyche convinced you that what is freely given has no value. Jung called this the inflation of the ego, the unconscious belief that because someone loves you unconditionally, their love must be ordinary. And so you treated it that way. You treated devotion like background noise. And here is where the psychology becomes truly fascinating. When someone loves you, and you consistently fail to mirror that love back, something shifts inside their unconscious mind. Jung would describe this as a withdrawal of projection. At first, that person projected their ideal onto you, their animus or anima, the inner image of what a partner should be. They saw you not only as you were, but as who they needed you to become. And when reality kept contradicting that image, something inside them quietly collapsed, not with grief, not with anger, but with a kind of psychological resignation that is far more final than any emotional outburst. This is the moment most people misunderstand. They think the other person gave up, but that is not what happened. What happened is individuation. The person who once poured every ounce of their identity into the relationship began the painful and beautiful process of reclaiming themselves. They started redirecting the energy they once gave to you back toward their own growth. They began exercising, reading, reconnecting with friends, laughing louder than you had heard in months, but never with you. And you noticed, not at first, but gradually, like a sound you cannot quite identify, but that keeps pulling your attention. Something was different, and it unsettled you in a way you could not articulate. If you are still watching this, it is because some part of you recognizes this pattern, and that recognition is not comfortable. That discomfort is your shadow knocking. Jung believed that the shadow contains everything we refuse to see about ourselves, every neglected responsibility, every unacknowledged wound, every moment we chose convenience over connection. And when someone we took for granted begins to thrive without us, the shadow does not just knock, it breaks the door down. Suddenly you find yourself doing things you never did before. You cook dinner, you light candles, you write long messages at 2 a.m, filled with vulnerability you never knew you had. But here is the paradox that Jung would have found deeply instructive. Every effort you make now, every gesture of care, every word of affection, these are the exact things that person begged you for months or even years ago. What impresses you about yourself today is what they considered the bare minimum yesterday, and they can see the difference between genuine transformation and panic. A person who has undergone real inner change does not perform care in order to regain control. They offer it because they have confronted the parts of themselves that were too afraid to be vulnerable. But what you are doing is not transformation, it is negotiation. You are not becoming a better person, you are trying to buy back a feeling. And the person standing across from you, the one who smiles politely at your candles and says thank you for the dinner, they know. They know because they spent months studying the difference between being chosen and being managed. This is where things get psychologically profound. Jung described a concept he called enantiodromia, the principle that anything pushed to its extreme will eventually transform into its opposite. The person who once gave everything eventually becomes the person who needs nothing. The one who craved your attention becomes the one whose attention you now desperately seek. And you, the one who once held all the power, now find yourself checking your phone, rereading old messages, scrolling through their photos, looking for some sign that they still think about you. You have become the very thing you never thought you could be, the one who waits, and they have become the very thing you never thought they could become. Free. Not free in a bitter way, not in a vengeful way, but in the way Jung described the individuated self, someone who has withdrawn their projections, integrated their shadow, and found their center of gravity within themselves rather than in another person. This is the kind of freedom that cannot be taken away because it was not given by anyone. It was excavated from within, piece by piece, through pain and solitude and the slow rebuilding of a self that had been abandoned in service of someone else. And that kind of freedom is terrifying to witness from the outside because it holds up a mirror to your own incompleteness. If this is resonating with you and you want to keep exploring this kind of psychological depth, take a moment to subscribe. This channel is built around understanding the hidden mechanics of the psyche, the patterns that shape our relationships and our sense of self, and there is much more ahead that I think will speak to you. Now here is the part that most people are not ready to hear. You cannot get this person back, not because they hate you. That would actually be easier. Hatred is still attachment. Hatred means there is still emotional energy directed toward you, still something to work with, still a thread connecting you to them. But what you are facing is not hatred, it is indifference. And indifference is the psychological equivalent of a closed door with no handle on your side. You send a message that says, "I miss you." They respond 3 hours later with something kind, something gentle, something that absolutely devastates you. Take care of yourself. Those words are not cold, they are warm, and that is exactly why they destroy you, because they are the words of someone who has made peace with your absence the way you never made peace with their presence. Their calm is your chaos. Their silence is the loudest thing you have ever heard. Jung spoke often about the concept of the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the social world. For years, your persona told you that being present was enough, that showing up physically meant you were showing up emotionally. But presence without attention is just furniture. You were in the room, but you were never really there. And the unconscious mind of the person who loved you registered every single moment of that absence, not consciously, not with scorekeeping, but in the deep tissue of their psyche, where trust is either built or eroded, one small moment at a time. Now you lie awake at night, replaying every scene. The dinners where you stared at your screen while they tried to talk. The mornings they reached for you, and you were already halfway out the door. The times they made themselves beautiful, and you said nothing. Each memory returns not as a thought, but as a sensation in your body, a tightness in your chest, a heaviness behind your eyes, a strange kind of grief that has no name because you cannot mourn something you destroyed with your own neglect. This is what the unconscious does when it is finally given permission to speak. Jung would say this is the unconscious making itself known, forcing you to feel what you refused to feel when it would have mattered. And here is the deepest irony. You are now doing the inner work, the self-reflection, the emotional archaeology. You are digging through the layers of your own neglect and finally seeing the shape of what you lost. But the person who inspired that excavation is no longer interested in what you find. They already know what is buried there. They lived in those ruins for years. A woman, or any person really, who has passed through the fire of loving someone who would not love them back and emerged on the other side, does not return to the fire. They do not negotiate with the flames. They simply walk forward into a life that no longer requires anyone else to validate its meaning. Jung called this the self with a capital S, the archetype of wholeness that exists at the center of the psyche when the ego finally surrenders its need to control. When someone reaches that place, they do not need your candles. They do not need your 2 a.m. confessions. They do not need your sudden transformation. They have already transformed, and the version of themselves they have become is the most formidable thing you will ever encounter, not because it is hostile, but because it is complete. You cross paths with them one morning. They are wearing something you have never seen, carrying a confidence that was not there before. They smile at you the way they would smile at anyone, polite and warm and utterly generic. And in that smile, you feel the full weight of what you have lost. You are no longer special. You are just someone they used to know. The power was never in your hands. It was in their love. And now that their love has been redirected inward, you are left standing in a silence that no apology can fill. This is what Jung meant when he wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because when someone truly accepts themselves, they no longer need you to do it for them. And you, who built your entire sense of importance on being needed, are suddenly standing on nothing. So here's the question I want to leave you with tonight. Who are you when no one is watching you with admiration? Who are you when the person you took for granted has built a life so beautiful that your absence is not even a footnote? Because the real transformation was never about winning someone back. It was always about becoming the kind of person who would never need to. That is the work. That is the shadow. That is the individuation Jung spent his life describing. And it does not start when you lose someone. It starts when you are finally honest about why they left. Not the story you tell your friends, not the version where you were blindsided. The real version, the one your ego has been protecting you from, the one where you had every warning and chose comfort over courage every single time. If this made you think, if something in this sat heavy in your chest, leave a comment and tell me what you recognized. Sometimes the most important conversation is the one you have with yourself, and this might be the beginning of yours.